We live in a time where masculinity is shamed and men don't know what it means to be a man. As a pastor and counselor, I've spent the better part of my life equipping and training others. My goal with this show is to translate my hard-earned experience into tools and tactics to help you become stronger as a man. This is the BraveCo podcast. I'm your host, Jason Vellet. All right, BraveCo men, I am back with my good friend, Zick. And here's the thing. If you're wondering, gosh, why is Cole back? He's back because once a month we get together and we talk about manhood, masculinity.
Well, the truth is I'm free. That's why I'm back.
So there's so much confusion today on what it means to be a man. And that confusion is largely in part to, which we've talked about this before, but we don't have dads at home. The dads are not. 50% of all homes are without a dad right now. So 50% of all kids are growing up in a home that doesn't have a dad. And I'm just fast forwarding a little bit. We can go back and see, well, that happened because of what happened in the 60s with the sexual revolution, right? Mm-hmm. You have the 30s, 40s, 50s, where parents were super strict. And domineering too, which is, we're going to talk about the domineering a lot, where men ran the home, men ran businesses, men did the voting, it's all men.
Men made
right?
the decisions.
Men made all of this.
Women were barefoot, naked, and cooking.
Well, I think just cooking.
Stereotypically, like the statement, barefoot, in the kitchen, barefoot, and naked.
Yeah, maybe. Was that a stereotypical thing at your home? That
was a statement. My dad has said it. Like, I heard my dad say it so many times growing up.
I've
like,
never heard that.
Yeah. Like the woman is barefoot and naked in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Like that's a phrase those generations.
Can I just talk to the camera for a sec? Because I think that might have only been in Cole's home.
I don't think so. Raise the hands on the other side of the camera.
We're talking about oppression, right?
Yeah.
Women are super oppressed. And so kids coming out of that environment, that's the kids of the 60s, right? Those are when people revolted and basically just said, hey, love should be free. People should be free. Sex should be free. You shouldn't have to, right? Like we don't want to do what our parents were doing. Our parents' lives suck. They're controlling, they're manipulative. Mom, who wants to be mom?
No doubt.
In this scenario, mom's cooking all the time. Dad comes home from work. He's checked out. I mean, that's the average home. And so the flip side of that is you have people hooking up, having loads of sex and drugs and all the stuff. And well, the consequence of that is babies are being born, and they're being born out of wedlock. They're being born out of commitment. They're being born out of desire, really. Like, I didn't want the baby. Wasn't trying to create a family. What I was trying to do is create some fun.
Yep.
Well, now you have a whole bunch of kids being born and dad isn't home.
Yeah.
And whether you want that to create pain or not, it creates a ton of pain. On top of that, like you've really taken away the drive for a man to pursue a woman because
there's no pursuit.
If I could get it for free, right? Like if I don't have to be responsible, if I don't have to show up and work hard, if I don't have to open the door for you, if I don't have to be polite to you, why would I go through all that effort and energy to do that so that I can get my needs met?
Mm-hmm.
So you take all of that out of the equation, right? And the product of that, it really is like the product of that, we are living in it today.
Yeah.
And so the massive amount of confusion on what it really means to be a man is so real. When I look back, I'm going to ask you a question here, but when I look back at my grandpa, so my grandpa was a farmer and he was a farmer in California. My grandpa never one time thought to himself, gosh, I wonder what it means to be a man.
Yeah.
My grandpa wasn't saved, he wasn't a Christian up until right before he died. But my grandpa didn't go, what is my role? Yeah. My grandpa's a farmer. I mean, every day he woke up and his job, right? I'm going to go out and I'm going to provide. I'm going to wake up early because no one else is going to do this work for me. He doesn't feel entitled. No one's ever done anything for him in his life. I'm going to go work hard. But he used to have a saying, And he told this to my dad when my dad was young. He'd say, son, a man is only worth what he can work, what he can produce. So we wouldn't say that as a whole, right? Like we wouldn't fully agree that like a man's worth is in his work, but that was my grandpa.
Yeah.
What it means to be a man is you provide, and you provide monetarily. You literally bring the food home, you build the home, you beat somebody down if they whatever, threaten the family or talk to mom bad, or like you provide. And for my grandpa, that worked. For most of our grandfathers, you know, all the way up until the last 20 years, there wasn't a bunch of guys running around going, gosh, what's it mean to be a man? But nowadays you have a ton of confusion.
Yep.
And what's recently, a lot of what's happening is the narrative has changed to toxic masculinity, right? And I will say, I think that a lot of it's our fault as men. I think we have to look at it and go like, damn.
Yeah, we did that.
Yeah. What happened in our grandfather's years, what happened even in our father's years, the way that we oppressed women for so long, the way that we treated them, I mean, created this really oppression.
Yep.
And out of that, you know, you have a whole narrative on being a man is bad. Being a man is unhealthy. Men are this toxic, gross, domineering thing. And that's also not true, right? We've swung to the other side and went, men are the problem. And I think you and I would both say like, men aren't the problem. Toxic men are the problem. Men who are unrestrained, men who are unhealthy are creating a ton of unhealth. And so we want to unpack that today and talk through, you know, what does it really mean to be a man? But Cole, I know that you have a definition for toxic masculinity. Why don't you give that to us?
Yeah. I mean, I think the conversation in general is really important because when you look at where we're at right now, part of the problem with toxic masculinity is it's almost making men at large feel like they have to compensate, apologize, or feel guilty for being what they are.
Yeah.
Right. And then all of a sudden, like, you know, I hate statements in general, like, oh, that's so male of you, or that's so white boy of you, or that's so whatever it is, right? Because, you know, people will say something like that to me. I'm like, well, thanks. I'm a man.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Like I actually, it doesn't feel like an insult for me to be identified the way that I am. Now, I also haven't experienced or done or been a part of a lot of the things that they describe this as. So here's a definition for toxic masculinity. You could probably get different definitions, different places.
I imagine.
I feel like this is pretty.
Did you go to ChatGPT and type this in?
Yeah, I went and asked ChatGPT, and he responded with.
You don't even know what ChatGPT is,
yeah,
do
it's
you?
AI.
All right.
And he responded with, I am going to. I'm not going to say what I was going to say. I'd been uncalled for. Okay, toxic masculinity. A set of attitudes and ways of behaving stereotypically associated with or expected of men. Which that, I want to talk about that in a second, because that alone is important to tackle. But regarded as having a negative impact on men and society as a whole. And then it gives an example. The destructive messages associated with toxic masculinity can lead to men feeling entitled to engage in violence against women. So it's using that as, and now the basic mindset from what I understand would be this: men are better, men are superior, we're stronger, we're smarter, we're better, we provide, we do all of the hard things. Because we do all the hard things, I have the right to take when I want to take.
Yeah.
And that would probably be the quickest, easiest way, I would say, from what I understand, people would label toxic masculinity as. Now, what they're taking, that depends on the situation, right?
Yeah.
It could be sex, could be money, it could be the preference, it could be
it's power.
I hold the remote, as small as I hold the remote, right?
Yeah.
Like the old joke that dad holds the remote in the house. So when you look at this, the problem I'm finding right now is technically I would agree there's a toxic form of masculinity out there.
100%.
Absolutely. You hear of these stories of men that are taking advantage of women in the workplace. You have men that are using their position to get, people that work underneath them to bed with them, XYZ. You add to that even more intense of, you're talking rape, where they're actually forcing it and it's forceful and it's violent, all of those things. But we as humans, for whatever reason, tend to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
And the moment there is a negative anything from this demographic, we tend to label that entire demographic that.
Yeah.
And so the struggle becomes now, how do we as men who would not and have not exemplified a toxic form of masculinity, slow everybody down and say, wait a second, there is a healthy version of this. And we do have the obligation to teach our sons a healthy version. Even that first part of that statement, I think, is important to pause on. It says, a set of attitudes and ways of behaving stereotypically associated with or expected of men. I would probably adjust it just slightly, and it's to me that it's a very positive thing. A set of attitudes and ways of behaving that are associated with how men behave as men. That is a thing that we're supposed to be teaching our boys, right? Now, when that has, like anything else, the moment you add entitlement,
right?
I mean, I can't think of a single area where entitlement's a good thing.
Think about it like this: like you have a full glass of water. If you take one drop of sewer water and you put it in there, the whole thing's nasty.
Yeah.
The whole thing's gross. That's entitlement.
Yeah.
It's like you take a guy, right? And you make him a victim. The whole thing's messed up because it changes the ecosystem of who he is. It changes the lens, the way that he sees the world. And it's not like, guys inherently are bad. It's like, no, your belief system's wrong.
That's it. So we have an interesting dynamic in our home with our kids. So, we have 3 boys, highly competitive, testosterone oozing out of every pore.
Yeah.
My oldest is a middle schooler. My second one's about to be a middle schooler. And then we have Chloe, the daughter, at 7.
Yeah.
And Chloe, instead of just falling into the ways of the boys and becoming a tomboy, is completely like this feminine dancing, just like this cute. She's just amazing, right? And my sister was an athlete. People called her a tomboy, which it's not even. I'm not even making a negative statement on that. Like Crystal, my sister, did awesome. She's a phenomenal athlete, all that stuff. But one of the dynamics that has come up in our home that I'm intentionally correcting with intentional language often is because the boys live in sports athletic world. And Chloe's not interested. What happens is they will, on a regular basis, make sure Chloe knows boys and men are stronger than girls. We're stronger, bigger, we're better.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'll catch them and we'll have lots of dialogue about this. And, men are so much better than girls. And you take a male athlete, he'll beat Serena Williams and, all this stuff that goes on. And one of the things I've done with the boys is anytime I've caught this, I've stopped them. And what I think is our job as men to teach to our young men is how to be a man and what to do with our strength.
Yes.
That's the key here to me, right? And so I'll look at them and I'll go, you know what, boys, you're right. God did make men to be physically stronger than women. That's a biological, physiological fact overall.
It's the product of testosterone in your body, right? Because our body produces testosterone because of our testicles, much more testosterone than a woman's body produces. The natural result of that is denser bones. It's more muscle mass.
Exactly.
It's more strength. There's nothing to argue there.
Exactly. Now, obviously there's bodybuilders that are women and I'm not taking anything away from that. So if you are the exception to the rule, we don't want an email or a comment. We understand there's exception to the rules. But in general. And so one of the things that I'll do often with the boys when they've had this moment where they're trying to, boys are better, is I go, yes, we're stronger than women. The question about what a real man does is, do you use your strength to protect or belittle?
Right.
That's the question that I try to help my boys understand. That's the question that we need to be asking ourselves as men, that we need to ask in culture. And we need to be praising healthy masculinity, where we're using our strength to protect, to provide, to cover, to create space for, to the dad that is helping his son wash his brand new car, the dad that's demonstrating sacrifice and servanthood, because there's a lot of great, strong, masculine men that are doing the right things and using what they have to create space for other people. But that narrative gets lost right now.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm so glad we're talking about this, because I just feel like there's so much to say about it. When you start to talk about addressing your sons, the real issue is what makes somebody valuable.
Yep.
And your boys, they're vying for value, right? They're vying for attention. So they're going, I'm better than you because I can produce more.
Yes.
I can do more. And as dads, we're going like, that's not actually where values derive from. Because when you were pooping your pants, I valued you as much as when you hit a home run.
That's right.
But they're learning that. They're building healthy identity. They're learning that they are not what they produce, but you have to produce, because that's part of responsibility.
Yep.
So the other day, my son was having a conversation with one of my sons, and I said, son, the difference between a boy and a man is a boy consumes more than he produces, but a man produces more than he consumes.
Yeah, that's great, Jay.
And he says, what do you mean? I said, I always have to produce more food than I eat, more electricity than I use, more money than I spend, or I'm always in the bank. I'm in the black or in the red.
Yeah,
I always will
great.
be. I have to produce more than I consume. But the benefit of being a boy is you don't have all that pressure, right? You're not feeling that pressure while you're working on your identity, while you're working on your capacity, while you're building like this confidence that you can. So our young boys are learning something. They're trying to get the affirmation from dad that I have what it takes.
Yep, that's so good.
So, they'll be they're the disciples behind Jesus arguing about who's the greatest.
Yep.
You notice Jesus doesn't tell them to stop arguing.
Yep.
Which the world right now wants to go, men don't argue. Men don't wrestle. Jesus doesn't say don't argue. Mm-hmm. Because he wants great men. That question's not evil. How do you become the greatest? What he does is he brings this little child and he says, whoever can be the greatest servant, right? He gives us all these, says that the greatest person is the one who is the greatest servant. Or he'll go, hey, to be the greatest in the kingdom, you have to be like this little kid. He gives all these different examples of what it takes to really inherit the highest level of living. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't take that out of them.
Yeah.
And right now what the world wants to do to men is they want to go, no, we have to all be equal. You're either toxic or we all have to be able to be the same.
Toxic or equal.
Yeah,
yep,
it's
right.
one or the other. You're bad or we all have to be the same. When you do that, you take away the purpose in the design.
Yep.
When you remove the purpose from the design, now you create a default dysfunctional society.
Yep.
Because it takes a strong man, and I'm not the one that created this, right? Like the saying, strong men create good times create
weak men.
Weak men create hard times times create strong men, right?
Yep, it's a cycle.
So, yeah, it is a cycle. So you have to, and here's the thing. I don't always believe that good times have to make weak men.
Sure.
I think it can, which in discipleship, right? In Jesus's model is discipleship. In discipleship, it says the kingdom goes from glory to glory to glory. That's what's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Is we're supposed to raise up men who know how to protect, provide, and promote, which we'll talk about in a second, who know how to raise healthy families, who know how to, right, train your kids in the way that they will go and they won't depart from it when they're older. That's what we're trying to do. And the big challenge that we face is because of hurt, because of pain, because of uncleaned up messes, real uncleaned up messes. You have the messes that we talked about in the beginning, the domineering, men who are domineering, men who are selfish, men who were insecure, completely dominating women. And then you have the messes of men leaving, maybe not even leaving, men and women deciding to have sex, have babies, take no responsibility. Those uncleaned up messes have created this massive confusion where somebody has to pay.
Yep.
And so, I mean, you're right. Like what was originally supposed to happen is we were supposed to go through a rite of passage as men. You were supposed to be trained as a man to go, listen, if you want the privilege of having a wife, and if you want the privilege of having responsibility, you have to hold to these standards. Back like 1,000 years ago, even less than 1,000 years ago, hundreds of years ago, men were brought into a rite of passage. In a lot of the tribes, when they were brought into rite of passage, for starters, some of the boys didn't survive the rite of passage, which I'm not saying that that's the best thing.
That in 2023 in the U.S.,
I'm saying
put them through something they could.
That's how seriously they took this. That's what I'm saying.
Well, it's because they realized the survival of our tribe depends on this 13-year-old becoming a man that contributes and gives more than he takes. It's critical.
100%.
So that risk of life wasn't actually to them this, oh no, it was actually, we need to know that he can hang.
You're not going to run back.
We have a tribe to keep and protect.
You're not going to turn and run away when danger comes.
Yep.
This is initiation. So, but the initiation was into responsibility, right? And so when they would initiate a boy, there's a bunch of different ways that they would do it. But when they initiated a boy, they welcomed him into manhood, and he no longer hung out with the women the same way as when he was a boy.
Yep.
Oftentimes they welcomed him up into responsibility. So now
stature changed.
He's able to hunt with he's able to hunt with the other hunters. He's able to protect with the protectors. He's also able to marry and to have kids. Like it was a status thing. It was you got status with the responsibility. You got respect, I should say, with the responsibility. And so, man, imagine growing up in a society where it's like the men who are respectable are the guys that are taking responsibility.
Yep.
I want to be that.
Yes.
That's what our society needs. Our society needs, what's cool is a whole bunch of men who take responsibility.
So
go ahead.
From a dad's point of view with kids that are middle schoolers still, one of the things that matters to me a ton, and I just give this as a challenge to the dads with kids. So my boys love to watch YouTube videos. Like YouTube is our Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah.
Like when I was a kid, it was Saturday morning cartoons. Yeah. Like I'm going to watch Saturday morning cartoons till noon. Yeah. Like that was like the day that you could do that. Now it's YouTube. And one of the challenges that the boys have with me is when I say, I don't want you guys watching this YouTube channel. And they're like, well, why? They don't cuss. They're this, they're that. There's not like any of the obvious negative things. And I'll tell one of the YouTube channels in particular, I can't even remember what it is. There's one that I'm like, I don't want you guys watching that. And the reason was simple. I go, guys, here's my problem with this. These guys that you're watching are grown men. And they're acting like little boys. Yeah. They're doing things that children do. Yeah. And it's being considered entertainment and comedy. I don't actually want you thinking that that's what manhood is like because they're irresponsible. They are pulling pranks on people. These are 25-year-olds pulling pranks on people at grocery stores and things of that nature. And I've talked through it. I go, this isn't actually going to teach you what it means to be a man. Yeah. And you're not going to be able to remove this from your subconscious belief system easily. Yeah. And so that's one of the things that I always, a lot of times challenge fathers with is to make intentional and educated decisions on what you're allowing your kids to be entertained by. My wife, Kate, has coined this phrase that's so good is we're trained by what we're entertained by. Yeah. A big part of where we're at right now is what we're consuming, what we're watching, what we're allowing in is a lot of toxic messaging along these lines on what it means to be a man or a woman. And then we're supposed to differentiate what is real and what we've just spent the last 4 hours being entertained by. And then verbally we'll say, well, this is what a man is.
Yeah.
Well, 4 hours of entertainment just defined a man a completely different way. And now I'm supposed to try to convince my 13-year-old that as he becomes a man, he's supposed to be responsible and treat elders with respect and not go through grocery stores pulling pranks on people.
Yeah, because that's what feels like it's cool.
Because that's what feels like it's cool. And so I think with dads, we have to begin to be very, very intentional with what we're allowing our kids to spend their life consumed with, being entertained by. What are they doing with their time? That's why, I'm not a hunter or a fisherman like you, right? Like
sorry about that.
I know. I went hunting with Jason one time and he never let me hold a gun the entire time.
Bro, you went to the shooting school and you did great.
I know, but the one time I went hunting, I didn't get to hold a gun. I want to say that to the camera.
No, and what that means is I'm responsible.
Yeah, it does probably mean that. I actually can't disagree with that statement. But where our world is we're very busy with sports. You know this, like insanely busy. Like some seasons, like spring is the craziest season, right? Because we have multiple baseball teams and XYZ. At the same time, when I look at our schedule and I think about the way my kids spend their time, sports is a great version of hunting and gathering.
It's responsibility.
You're on a team that depends on you, that you have to show up to practice. You have to work to get better as a commitment to other people that are dependent on you. Right. And then there's the competition and learn how to have healthy competition and respecting a coach and all of those things. But I think that it's really important that as parents, whether it's sports, whether it's hunting, we're finding things that we are teaching our children responsibility in and through, rather than doing the easy thing. Because it's really easy when I'm busy, Jay, to go, Connor, here.
Yeah.
I need a minute.
Jump on that.
Caleb, here. Cade, come and watch a YouTube video. I got something I have to do. We default there really quick.
Yeah.
And without realizing it, we're letting this parent. I'm actually letting this, if I'm not careful, define manhood to my 3 boys. And it is very clear that my mandate is to be the one that defines manhood to my boys. Now, that doesn't mean I don't bring people in, right? Like you've played a big role in that. Doug, Caitlin and I's mentors played a big role in that. But we actually have to get really intentional with what messaging we're allowing in our homes.
Well, here's the thing too, even going just beyond that is all of the real joy and satisfaction in life comes through the responsibility that we take. And so we think about it really clearly, like so many people are wandering around life right now going, what is my purpose?
Yes.
Purpose-Driven Life is one of the biggest selling books of all time, still is one of the biggest selling books of all time today, because so many people feel purposeless. And you go, well, what actually creates purpose? It's your responsibility.
Yep.
And the message that society's getting right now is, where can you have the most fun?
Yes.
Where can you make the most money? Where can you...
most money, most fun, least responsibility.
Least responsibility. Do whatever it takes and I'm not smashing this guy, but it's the title. It's the 4-hour work week. Like, where can you work for 4 hours a week and then have the rest of the time to go and play? And the truth is, like, life's not really like that.
Nope.
That's not even the greatest, most satisfying life is. I'm not working so that I can retire for the last 15 years of my life and then die. Like, that's not what I'm working towards. And so, but our Western society has said, like, hey, men, this is the pinnacle. The pinnacle is no responsibility or low responsibility and tons of free time and all kinds of fun. Okay. You're not going to find success there. You're not going to find a ton of happiness and satisfaction there. Where you're going to find satisfaction is in taking responsibility in who God's called you to be.
Yes.
So then we go, well, what's God's role for men? What is the role? What was the design for a man? It go back to protect, provide, and promote.
Yeah.
So why did God make men more physically strong?
To protect. To
protect. Super simple, right? For thousands of years, we have been running around the forest or the desert or the beaches.
Here's my preference.
Yeah. And if you couldn't protect your tribe, you don't exist.
Yep.
And so we are better suited, right? We are default more aggressive, not out of control, but listen, you want aggression. So when ladies go like, I don't want a man who's aggressive. No, you don't want a man who doesn't have his aggression under control.
Right. Yes.
But you want a man who's very capable
of being aggressive when
being
needed.
aggressive.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't have that, you don't have security.
Yep.
You're going to have somebody that's going to come and pillage.
Yep.
And it may be 1,000 years ago, it would have been another tribesman that comes in and takes.
Yes.
Nowadays, you've got somebody coming into your home now more than you've ever had anybody coming into your home.
That's right.
You want a man that's going to step up and stand up and go, that's not coming in my home.
That's right.
And so, the ability to protect.
That was good.
Yeah, is massive. The ability for a man to hold his ground and say, it's virtues and values, right?
Absolutely.
I'm not running away from this fight. I'm standing up to this fight.
I'm getting fired up right now.
Yeah, me too.
You're getting me fired up. Woo!
And then you go, okay, provide, right? So that's protect. We often think too, let me just stick on protect. We often do protect like, I'm going to get my guns. If anyone looks at my wife. Like,
that's right. There's a toxic form of protection.
Yeah. We're so excited. The idea of a man.
No one's trying to fight you right now, bro. Chill out.
Talking to my wife negatively because we feel like, this is my one moment, right?
I get to fight and it's justified. Yeah, totally.
Protection is so much more about upholding the standard now than it's ever been. And you talked about that. Okay.
Well, and can I say this with protection?
Yeah.
It's also our job to protect their heart.
Yeah, which is where we're going. Yeah,
which is big.
It's massive,
right? Like protecting my kid's heart not from hardship.
Yeah,
I don't want to protect them from hardship because you can't, nor should I, because they need to experience that. But I want to protect their heart from entitlement. I want to protect their heart from low self-esteem. I want to protect who they are. Like protection isn't just to pick up the gun. Sometimes it's have the conversation.
I used to go over to my friend's house, and as we got older, he was my best friend growing up. And as we got older, I would come home, and my attitude would be really bad because his house was chaos.
Yeah.
And I remember one time, my dad specifically saying to me, I was being kind of rude and obnoxious to my mom, and he called me into his room and he said, "Hey, you're not allowed to go over there anymore unless you're the one doing the influencing. You're either influencing him or he's influencing you. There's no neutral ground."
That's right.
And he told me, if you come back here and he's influencing you, that's it.
We've had the same exact conversation with my oldest.
My dad was teaching me, and you're teaching your son, this is what it looks like to be a man, but he's protecting the culture.
Yep.
In the home. He's protecting the culture inside of him. He's equipping
exactly right.
Okay, the next one to me is that provide. We love to think of provide is like, I go to work 9 to 5, right? It's this big math equation. It's 9 to 5 times 52 weeks a year, minus a couple vacation. Like that's a rule van. And it's like, get a haircut, get a real job. That's real.
Get a haircut and get a real job.
But you have to go beyond that.
Clean your act up and don't be a slob.
You got to stop. That was
okay. I mean, you said get a haircut and a real job. It's
Bro,
a line from the 90s. I can't help it.
But here's the thing. The baseline for provide is 100% financial. If you can't provide financially, you're not providing.
Yep.
But then you have to.
That's like starting point. Like that's like 0.0 actually.
Yeah.
Like that's just the expectation.
That's base 4. Like it's not the ending point.
Mm-hmm.
From there, emotional, and I'm not saying one's higher than the other. I'm saying emotional, mental, physically, spiritually provide. So what does it mean to provide spiritually for your family? Or you're setting the tone.
Yep.
You're not waiting for your wife to ask you to go to church. You're setting the tone.
That's right.
You're not waiting for your kids to ask you about God. Like you proactively have a plan. You are providing nourishment. So the Bible says, husbands, nurture and cherish your wife. that word love there, husbands love your wife, is actually nurture and cherish.
Yep.
And it's the way that a woman would nurture a baby. That's what he says our job is, right?
Yep.
For our wives and for our families is I'm thinking through, are they being nourished physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually? Like I have a plan. So I'll just give you a really simple example. My daughter, Edie, she's 3 years old. And she, on a a daily basis, she'll stop and say, Dad, I feel really disappointed right now. Or Dad, I feel lonely. Or Dad, this morning she said, I feel sad. I'm teaching her. I'm providing for her.
You said, suck it up, baby. Those emotions Validins don't feel sad.
What I actually said there is, you don't think I feel sad?
I feel sad all the time. I got another kid. I have 5 kids now. You don't even know sad, child. You didn't say that?
We gave her a language.
Yeah.
As she was young, we gave her a language to talk about her emotions.
So good.
So that she has a way to get those needs met in a healthy way. And I'm setting the tone for that. Yeah. Right. And so, yeah, I mean, to me, like, and then the last one is the promote, which is a leadership role. To me, it's the, think about discover, develop, deploy. And so our job as men is to help our children find what they were called to do and to promote them into that, right? Yeah, it's Jesus's model. And to me, like, this is why you need healthy men. You need healthy men because God's design for humanity wouldn't be that we'd be a bunch of random people running around being whoever we wanted to be, doing whatever we wanted to do. Like God designed the kingdom to be lived out inside a family. Yep. And the fact that it's not that it's not my wife's job to protect. My wife protects all the time. Yep. She's just not the initiator. It's not that it's not my wife's job to provide. She provides too. And by the way, if my wife made more money than me, dude, I'm friggin' stoked. I don't care. At the end of the day though, it's my ultimate job. Yeah. If crap hits the fan, I'm going to be the one to make sure that I'm going back. Yeah, it's not that my wife doesn't even set the tone for some of the emotional health stuff in our home. Great. But I'm the one initiating it. I'm the one making sure that it's happy. I'm the one responsible. At the end of the day, the buck stops here. And it's not to negate what she does. It's that she's much better suited when I come in and go, hey, let me walk through this door first. Let me hold this door open for you emotionally. That's what I was designed to do according to God's design for me. Yep. And so, man, when men do that, when we step up and we lead and we take initiative, it sets the tone for everything. And here's the truth, is that any human being can be toxic.
It's true.
There's toxic women out there. There's toxic femininity. Yeah. There's toxic masculinity. It's all about, well, how are you using your power?
Yes, exactly right.
It's simple.
It is. It's pretty darn simple when you, and I think that what you're saying, Jay, is such a good framework for men. Like for those that are listening or watching, I think that on a regular basis right now, we need to be having this dialogue. Am I protecting, providing, promoting in all of the areas, not just the physical areas that scratch my testosterone itch, but am I really doing those 3 things? And I want to give just a shameless plug because I don't know that there's any better way to become fully the man that you're called to be without being around other men that are going after that same thing.
Yeah, it doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen. So, for those that are listening to this podcast, I imagine it's because you are yearning for deeper connection with other men that we can be strengthened together. And I love podcasts. I love the culture that we have, but there's still nothing like being in person.
It's true.
And if you're watching and listening, you have to be in environments like this. And so shameless plug, come to BraveCo conference because we are going to spend 3 days together in June here in Reading talking about this, diving in together, being around each other, sharpening each other, getting stronger together, building who we are, building each other up, building ourselves up. And so, there really is nothing like setting aside time to say, all right, Lord, I want to rediscover who you've called me to be so that I can be the full God-breathed version of myself.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's all this talk nowadays of be the best version of you. That's great. I'm actually not super interested in being just the best version of me. I want to be the God version of me.
Yeah.
Like, who is the version of me that God created when he knit me together in my mother's womb? What was he hoping I would be producing at 39 years old?
More testosterone than you are, but that's not his fault.
It's your fault. That's the fault of these jeans that my wife makes me wear. God, I was about to go on a roll right there and you just completely threw me off. But I'm teasing, but I think that it's really critical that we spend time with each other. Like, I think about the life, the identity, and the strength as a man I get from being around you. Some of our friends, Trey, Ahab, Chris, right? Ted, Gabriel, sitting at the campfire. We did a couple weeks ago. Those little moments of connection actually speak to your heart in ways you don't realize. Because now I'm in a room with men that are masculine, that are strong, that are providing, they're protecting, they're promoting, they're doing all of the things that I'm working on a daily basis to do. And so now it's like, all right, Lord, I want to pull what Jason has. I want to pull some of what Ahab has. I want to pull from these guys so that I can be the best God version. When you knit me together, I want to fulfill the picture that you had in that moment of conception.
100%.
And I don't know a better way to do it than to be around other men going for it, because the Holy Spirit shows up differently when we're in a room like that with all of us together. I mean, it is a different manifestation of the Lord and the Holy Spirit than, like, I love my quiet time, but man, there's something different about all being in the same room together. So,
well, here's the thing.
Come to BraveCo conference.
June 21st through 23rd is the conference. If you cannot be here in person, you can stream it online, and we've got just tons of activities and stuff that we're also doing at the conference. But
if you can come in person, come. Cancel things, reschedule things. You will not be upset with the investment.
I do want to say this. The Bible is super clear on how to become a really sharp man. It says, it gives us an analogy. It says, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. And here's the important part. You have to, in order to actually sharpen a knife, you have to have something harder than the steel.
Yep.
And it's this picture of you getting around somebody that is sharper, that is harder than you.
Yep.
That is taking off the things that don't matter.
Yep.
Until you get into this really, like, all a knife is a really focused edge.
So good, Jay.
And the more focused the edge is, the sharper it is.
Yep.
And so when you can really narrow that down and go like, no, this is who I created to be. No, this is my intentionality. No, these are my core values. No, this is what I'm going after. There's no other way to do, you can't do that on your own.
Yep.
You can get a version of that, but you cannot get honed down to your absolute maximum capacity. Here's the other thing, is that when you're on your own, you only have your momentum and strength. That's it.
That's it.
As soon as I couple myself to somebody else, it's like this, it's a multiplier, because I instantly attach myself to their success. Like, is there a greater way to do a hard thing and make it easy? No, you attach yourself to somebody else's success. That is the easiest way to hit yourself to a sure win.
Yep.
And man, the only reason why we have men who feel purposeless, men who are struggling with their identity, toxic masculinity, is because we have men that are unhealthy, that aren't whole, that are living outside of community and connection. And it's not that hard. It's just that intentional.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It's that intentional.
Be on purpose.
Get around men who are doing this stuff. My favorite thing, and I use this analogy almost every time, is I know when I come home every night, I come home and I know if I'm in a hard moment, I think about it a lot. If I'm in a hard moment, it could be with my wife, it could be with my kids. I know that all of my friends are going to do the same thing I'm doing.
Yeah.
They're going to make the same decision I'm making. And gosh, dude, I'm telling you, like, that saves me so many times from just checking out to like, okay, I'm going to press in, because dude, I'm going to see all those guys this week.
Yeah.
I'm going to go hang out with them. I'm going to influence them. And then I think about my job, like my people are counting on me, right? So I'm going to jump in and I'm going to have to sharpen these other guys this week, like that's part of my role. That's part of the responsibility. It's part of what gives me purpose. And it just gives me that extra edge to really go after it. So
it's great.
Man, we hope that this week was helpful for you, talking about toxic masculinity, but really what it ultimately means to be a man. We want every guy to be full of purpose. We want your kids to be full of identity. We want your homes to be places that are full of strength. And it really is up to us men to come in and to provide that place of real connection, to provide a place of real safety and comfort and hope. And that's what we're doing. Cole, you have anything to say?
No, I think we've said a lot of good stuff.
All right. BraveCo men, be brave this week. Connect with some other dudes. Show up at home. We will see you next week. Hey guys, thanks so much for listening to the BraveCo podcast. If you like this podcast, would you please rate it, review it, leave us a great comment. And if you like this episode in particular, share it with your friends and family. That helps us to spread the word. Guys, stay brave. We'll see you next week.